Some 8 million eligible voters are at the polls today to elect their new president in Chad. Opposition parties in Togo set to re-strategize other means of achieving political change after losing heavily to the governing Union for the Republic Party.
Les résultats qui sortent aujourd'hui, ça n'est pas surprenant.
The results are not surprising. For 30 years since this electoral process has been in place, all the elections have been won absolutely by the ruling party. Election has become an instrument of confiscation of power. It can no longer be limited to the electoral process, as the election has shown its limitations. Instead, it must become part of a broader strategy of pressure on the regime to force a transition.
The PASTEF party, led by Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, set to embark upon a tour of member countries of the Alliance of Sahel States and Guinea-Conakry. And Islamic leaders around the world call for immediate ceasefire and aggression against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This edition begins in Chad, where citizens, as a result of 8 million eligible voters, are at the polls today to elect their new president. This presidential election marks the end of a military transitional period that commenced in April 2021 following the death of former President Idris Deby Itno. General Mahatma Idris Deby, the son of the late president and a key figure in the military transition, stands as a prominent candidate in this historic election, symbolizing both continuity and change in Chad's political landscape. Nadiditete reports.
The ultimate goal of this presidential election is the return to the constitutional order, which was disrupted by the death of the former president Idris Deby Itno during fighting with rebels in April 2021. His son, Mahamat Idris Kaka Deby Itno, who took over power during a political transition, now wants to extend his stay in office through the ballot box. He had committed to return the country to constitutional rule in 18 months, but reneged on his words and extended his stay in office by 2 years without an election. The extension triggered protests that left many people dead in October 2022. Though Mahamat Deby Itno is projected to win, he's facing competition from 9 other candidates. One of them is his Prime Minister, Succès Masra, leader of the party Les Transformateurs. He was very critical of the transition until his recent appointment last January as a Prime Minister. The economist, Succès Masra, nevertheless intends to play all his chances. Another important political force is a former Prime Minister Albert Bahimi Padaki, head of the National Rally for Democracy in Chad. He wants to block the transition. He wants to block the transition president and his Prime Minister Succès Masra. Higher Education Minister Laidi Biasmenda is the only female in the contest. Another person who would have given Mahamat Itno a run for his money was Yaya Dilo, a cousin of Deby and his fiercest rival in the election. He was killed in an army assault on 28 February. According to his party, he was executed with a point-blank bullet to the head. Chad, despite being rich in minerals, many of its 18 million citizens are living in abject poverty.
Nadiditete reporting there. Let's continue with electoral matters. In Togo, the opposition plans to re-strategize and maneuver other means to ensure it achieves political change after losing heavily to the governing Union for the Republic Party, as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The opposition parties have alleged electoral fraud in the recently organized elections. Meanwhile, the governing party continues to celebrate its victory in the legislative elections, with that of the regional elections not expected to be different from the margins recorded in the legislative one. Abdullahi Hassan reports.
Togo's ruling party, the Union for the Republic, has clinched a commanding victory in the legislative elections held on April 29, 2024, as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission (CENI) on Saturday night. The provisional results underscore the ruling party's dominance in the National Assembly with an unprecedented win of 108 out of 113 seats, consolidating nearly 96% of the parliamentary representation. In contrast, the opposition parties collectively secured only 5 seats. However, the electoral process has been marred by allegations of irregularities and misconduct. The opposition has raised concerns, including reports of ballot stuffing supported by circulating videos on social media platforms. In response, the opposition parties say they are planning to revise their strategies. Nathaniel Olympio, president of the Togolese party, a key opposition group, emphasizes this shift in approach.
Les résultats qui sortent aujourd'hui, ça n'est pas surprenant.
The results are not surprising. For 30 years since this electoral process has been in place, all the elections have been won absolutely by the ruling party. Election has become an instrument of confiscation of power. And while it may seem like everything is going smoothly now, the Togolese people are not satisfied. They will continue to resist and oppose this regime's actions. The fight for change must adapt its approach. It can no longer be limited to the electoral process, as the election has shown its limitations. Instead, it must become part of a broader strategy of pressure on the regime to force a transition and rebuild the social contract. This is the only viable option for the Togolese people today.
Refonder les bases du contrat social. Et c'est la seule option que l'on impose aux Togolais aujourd'hui.
The results of these legislative and regional elections await confirmation by the Supreme Court.
Abdoulaye Hassan filed that report. Here in Senegal, the PASTEF party, led by Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, is set to embark on a tour of member countries of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, and Guinea-Conakry. The announcement was made by Sonko on Sunday following a meeting held at party level. As David Vincent reports, the first phase will see the party delegation visiting Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger.
The ruling coalition, African Patriots of Senegal for Work, Ethics and Fraternity, is taking steps to assume its pan-Africanist and sovereignist agenda. The tour plans follow the invitation of the party's partners in the Alliance of Sahel State countries. Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko highlighted that the move is part of the party's mission to strengthen political partnership at the African and sub-regional level. Analysts attribute the budding relations between the Sahelian states and the PASTEF party to the speeches made by Sonko and President Bassirou Diomaye Faye during the electoral campaign. President Diomaye Faye has been applauded for his stance on crucial issues such as international partnership and currency. However, as part of strengthening its political partnership, PASTEF will receive in Dakar a delegation of French Insoumis, a left-wing political party in France, from May 14 to 18, 2024. The emissaries will be made up of elected officials and led in person by a former deputy of the French National Assembly, Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
David Vincent with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Islamic leaders around the world have called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and aggression against the Palestinian people in Gaza. They also expressed their support for the Sahel region facing insecurity, humanitarian challenges, and armed conflict, including terrorism. They made the demands and declared their support for the Sahel region in the final communique of the OSIWA summit held in Banjul during the weekend. Sankule Janko has more in this report.
Following a two-day summit that concluded on Sunday in Banjul, the capital of the Gambia, Islamic leaders issued a joint statement calling for an immediate ceasefire and the cessation of all aggression against Palestinians in Gaza. This development comes as President Barrow, who is the chairman of the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, OIC, assumed the leadership role of the organization.
We will do everything possible to mobilize the organization so that we will speak with one voice to make sure Palestine is free. Not even ceasefire, but permanent ceasefire, and at the same time we deliver the project of the Palestinian people to their independence.
During the summit, the Islamic leaders paid tribute to the solidarity of African people, particularly South Africa, on the struggle of the Palestinian people. They also strongly condemn all forms of intolerance, terrorism, violence, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia and discrimination of all kinds. President Barrow emphasized that his main focus during his tenure as OIC chairman would be on advocating for unity among member states.
Our main discussion is about solidarity and unity. We should all work together to drive the vehicle to the final destination. The final destination is we want to be united, we want to be in solidarity. If we are united, we are strong. If we are in solidarity, we are strong.
In addition to the call for unity, the OIC also expressed its unwavering support to the countries and peoples of the Sahel region, which are grappling with daunting security and humanitarian challenges, including armed conflicts, violent extremism, food insecurity, and vulnerabilities amplified by climate change. The OIC further called on the international community to accelerate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly poverty alleviation, climate change, food security, health, and education. According to experts, the 15th OIC Banjul Summit was a success, particularly in terms of the messages conveyed through the joint statement issued by the Islamic leaders. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janke reporting from Banjul.
We continue with security matters. The Nigerian Air Force has carried out successful airstrikes against terrorist hideouts near Lake Chad, neutralizing several insurgents and destroying their structures. The airstrikes, according to the Nigerian Air Force, targeted terrorist gatherings in the northeast and north-central regions. WADR's Usma Umar in Abuja reports.
According to the Nigerian Air Force, NAF, on May 3, 2024, its plane struck a terrorist assembly point at Chinene, a location within the Mandara mountain area near Borno State, where insurgents were seen gathering, likely for a meeting. Per the statement issued by the NAF, the airstrikes also targeted 7 gun trucks parked under trees, destroying the terrorists' weapons and mobility. The statement added that the strikes were successful, resulting in the neutralization of several terrorists and destruction of their logistics. Additionally, terrorists hiding in Alawa village near Shiroro in Niger State were neutralized on the same day. The mission was conducted following credible intelligence that revealed the movement of terrorists into the village after locals fled for their safety. The terrorists had earlier attacked the deserted Alawa community on May 1, 2024 and set fire to the Central Primary School. Another group of terrorists later arrived at the location armed with AK-47 and AK-49 rifles after invading Galapai village in the same local government area. The NAF deployed its platforms to attack the location, engaging and neutralizing several terrorists. Further airstrikes were conducted after area reconnaissance confirmed the presence of a cache of arms hidden inside Alawa forest. The statement concluded that several terrorists were neutralized, their logistics were destroyed, and arms and ammunition were seized. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Osman Omar reporting from Abuja.
Let's move to the Sahel, especially in Niger, where new Russian instructors arrived over the weekend. They were received in Niamey by the head of the military government, General Abdurrahman Chiani. In their luggages were several pieces of war equipment. The Russians now occupy the base in Niamey, where the American force was stationed and subsequently pushed out. At the moment, Niger is demonstrating the strengthening of its security operation with Russia, Imo Edit reports.
Since denouncing military agreements with the United States, Niger has turned towards Russia after the arrival of the first contingent of 100 Russian instructors a few weeks ago. A second contingent landed in Niamey over the weekend. This time, no specifics were given about the number of newcomers. The media reported that the arrival of the second cargo flight, along with the third flight carrying food supplies and military assets, was withheld from public broadcast for national security reasons. According to Nigerian sources cited by the Russian news agency RIA Novosti, a Russian humanitarian cargo ship arrived in Niamey, unloading near the U.S. military base. U.S. Defense Minister Lloyd Austin acknowledged the presence of Russian soldiers at the Niger Air Force Base, hosting U.S. troops near Niamey Airport. Following the coup, Niger's military regime not only severed ties with the U.S., but also demanded the withdrawal of over 1,000 American soldiers, initiating discussions on the terms of this departure. Notably, the U.S. operates a significant drone base near Agadez, constructed at a cost of $100 million. Since the termination of the military cooperation agreements with the United States last March, Niger has strengthened its cooperation with Russia. According to authorities, the Russian instructors will be involved in training the Nigerian army engaged in the fight against terrorism.
Imo Edet reporting there. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Citizens of Chad head to the polls today to elect a president as the nation prepares to transition to civilian rule. Opposition parties in Togo set to re-strategize on the means of achieving political change after losing heavily to the governing union for the Republic Party. The PASTEF party, led by Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, set to embark on a tour of member countries of the Alliance of Sahel States and Guinea-Conakry. Still ahead, inter-Malian dialogue phase 2 begins today. Still ahead are the news, interview, the press review, and sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
We continue in the Sahel as the national phase of the inter-Malian dialogue is opening today. And this national consultation brings together approximately 3,000 participants in Bamako and is expected to last until Friday of this week. The transitional president, Kono Assimi Goita, is expected to preside over the ceremony. This national phase of dialogue among Malians is intended to yield final recommendations. Active participants are tasked with finalizing their expectations and proposals. These discussions, initiated by the transitional authorities in the name of national reconciliation and peace, commenced in May-April in the municipalities, regions, and consulates of the country. Several women from the Sahel states are backing the transitions in Burkina Faso and Niger. The new organization established in March kicked off activities in Waik, located in northern Burkina Faso. Here are the details with Oge Oberika in the following report.
The Alliance of Women from the Sahel State was founded in March 2024. The organization officially launched its activities in Wahiguya, northern Burkina Faso, on Saturday, May 4. It brings together women from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, all currently undergoing political transitions. The group's primary goal is to support the leaders of this state. Habiba Sawadogo serves as a spokesperson for these women.
Les défis auxquels l'Alliance des États du Sahel font actuellement face sont complexes. Cependant,
the challenges the Sahelian states are facing currently are complex. However, we are convinced that it is only under the enlightened leadership of Colonel Assimi Goita, Captain Ibrahim Traore, and General Abdurrahman Chiani that these countries will be able to navigate these issues and take the countries towards a more prosperous future.
À travers ces eaux tumultueuses vers un avenir meilleur et plus prospère.
It also marked the beginning of an initiative called Wahiguya Bole, the Wahiguya Call. These women view their central role as raising awareness and educating their peers about the current challenges.
En tant que femmes de l'AES, nous sommes conscientes de notre rôle crucial.
We are aware of our crucial role in building these countries, united forever, on the path to freedom. Now, since they took over, we have witnessed the impactful efforts to make history.
Nous sommes témoins des efforts impactants que vous consentez en vue de la reconquête de nos territoires.
The Alliance of Women from the Sahel state leaders assure that sections for Niger and Mali will soon be established.
Oge Oberika with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's head back to Nigeria as we join Usma Umar for the newspaper review.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. We begin the day with the Daily Trust newspaper, which is leading with this story from the Nigeria Air Force. It says, Nigeria Air Force airstrikes kill many terrorists in Borno, Niger. Federal government to reconnect 8 Sokoto local government areas to national grid after 10 years of blackout, of course, due to insurgency that targeted some of the infrastructures of the Nigeria Electricity Company. In those 8 local government areas of Sokoto State have been without electricity from the national grid for about 10 years. Of course, arrangements and preparations have now been completed to reconnect them back to the national grid. Lagos market clash. Unions threaten to cut tomato supply to Lagos. Of course, there is this flash war on Gaza. Israel shuts Al Jazeera's office. With the rider, U.S. police arrest more pro-Palestinian protesters. This is an update on the ongoing crisis in the Gaza Strip. We quickly move to the Daily Sun, and the Daily Sun is leading with this political story. Atiku mocks Tinubu. Of course, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, which is the major opposition political party in Nigeria. Another story of interest, Nigeria, United Kingdom trade relations worth £7 billion. This is according to Envoy. Only PhD students now eligible to bring dependents to the United Kingdom. Detail of this is on page 6. Very quickly, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission disowns list of ex-governors under probe for graft. Insecurity, we will engage peace marshals across Southeast. This is from Kalu. And then gunmen kill another traditional ruler in Ebonyi. Those are a raft of other stories that made it to the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. And finally, we take a look at national economy that is leading with this story. Nigeria records 1.9 billion naira point of sale fraud in 1 year. With riders, fraudsters adapt swiftly to new channels, regulatory precautions. How to beat them to their game. This advice is coming from experts. And very quickly, Nigeria loses $9 billion annually to post-harvest waste. Detail is on page 3. And finally, 34.3% of employed Nigerians impoverished by low-skilled, low-paid jobs. This is according to a report by National Economy. And this is the much we have for you on this segment of Newspaper Review. I hand you now back to the studios. My name is Usman Omar from Nigeria's capital, Abuja.
Thanks to Usman Omar for the press review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
And this segment of the news takes us back to Togo as the opposition plans to re-strategize and maneuver other means to ensure it achieves political change after losing heavily to the governing Union for the Republic Party, as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. However, an independent observer, Morgan Asogba, weighs in on the Togo's electoral outcome so far.
It's quite a bit clear in terms of consensus and in terms of acceptation of the current political dynamic. It means that these people belonging to the opposition party do not accept what came out as a result from these elections and have been protesting since the very moment where Parliament in place decided to adopt the law changing the leadership system within the country. So this is a clear, logical display of their position when it comes to everything going on in terms of politics and management of the country. So it is not surprising, but the question we should be able to wonder about is it factual? Is it based on real facts that could be used to express their opposition? And even when taken to the various institutions, I'm talking about the judiciary, they might have on their side the law to attest that these elections have been frauded and that they do not express the willingness of the people.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, termed the process as satisfactory. How does ECOWAS Monitor's report now validate its previous electoral observation in other sub-regional countries?
This is very interesting, and this is not also new. When it comes to the factual aspect, it is clear that the ECOWAS observers have decided to consider the election process as satisfactory, and this is acceptable and this is understandable. The other aspect of the situation that might not be taken by the ECOWAS observers is the social perspective of the situation.
Morgan Asogba is an independent observer following the Togo's electoral process. Now, in the world of sports, Liverpool got the response they wanted from Egyptian striker Mohamed Salah in their win over Tottenham. Analysts say their only disappointment were that his performance came a couple of weeks too late, and they're not suggesting Salah hasn't been on top form because of an attitude problem, because they think it's a physical issue that has held him back in recent weeks. And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maudoju for the technical assistance. To interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio